Being a Baal Emunah means changing your entire perspective and opening up your eyes to see things that someone who's not a Baal Emunah won't see. We'll get to the practical of the proofs and the science and all that stuff in history on Sunday afternoon. But for now, we're going to start again what it means to have that perspective. And Baruch Hashem, we are zorcha to have tonight Rabbi Orlofsky to start us off.
Thank you very much. And it is, of course, for me, always a special opportunity when I have a chance to come to the yeshiva. And it's been many years now. And I'm always surprised when they call me year after year. But obviously there's a very small slate of people. I guess they can get English speakers. So I keep coming back. And I hope that I'm able to share some ideas that'll be meaningful for people. I had these two guys at my house for a Friday night after they escaped from a program in Switzerland for OTD guys, and they managed to break into the office, steal their passports, and they came back to Israel. And they were works in progress, you know. So I said at one point, so what are you guys going to do now? So one guy said, look for the truth. I said, I out. I said, oh yeah, where are you going to do that? The guy says, what? So what are you going to walk down the street and look for it? Do you think it's hanging on a tree? Tell me. The most important question you could ask yourself, is there a God? Did he give the Torah? Because if not, so then live any life you want. And if he did, that changes your entire perspective. So those are the questions you have to answer. So if you're serious about looking for the truth, okay. I'm always surprised when I say anything that makes a difference. And 2 weeks later, I see one of these guys in Or Sameach. I said, what are you doing here? He goes, you're right. I'm going to look for the truth. I got to look for the truth. And I thought, what an amazing thing. That's what it all comes down to in the end. What is the purpose of us? What are we doing here? Is this true or not? So that's what Emunah is. Is there a God? Did he give the Torah? Is this real or not? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves because we don't have that clear. Talking to a guy once in Or Sameach, he says to me, where's all the happiness? What? Okay. Better? All right. Anyway, a guy in Or Sameach, he says to me, where's all the happiness in Judaism? I said, it comes from being close to God. He goes, I don't know if I believe in God. I said, then I have nothing to do for you. What do you, if you like eating a matzah, eating a matzah, shake a lulav, it gives you a charge, Well, I have nothing to offer you. Judaism is there a God or there's not? If it's not, just forget about it. The whole thing's a joke. So, you're going to hear all kinds of different evidence and examination and stuff like that. But I want to go through a process of elimination. Because that's how Avraham Avinu arrived at the truth. He went and examined every avodah zarah that was out there to see if it's true or not. And when he saw that it wasn't true, he made a fiery X on the door and opened the next one, right? You appreciate the reference. Anyway, so he went through all of the book fun. Anyway, he went through all of the different possibilities, and in fact, there were those who understand that medrash where he went and smashed all the idols. Not literally, he did it intellectually, where he managed to it's okay, I can project if I have to. He managed to go and examine every avodah zarah. I mean, this was an unbelievable thing. It's very hard to do. People ask me this question all the time. They say, why am I studying Judaism? What about Christianity? What about Islam? What about Buddhism? So, Reb Noach Weinberg, he said, when a child is in utero, he's taught the entire Torah. When he comes out, a malach hits him on the lip and he forgets everything. So what's the point? So the point is that there's a process of remembering. You have a certain internal truth. He says, so why does he hit you on the lip? To teach you that as you begin your journey to look for the truth, the first place to look is right under your nose. So that if you were born Jewish, so look into that first. There's an unbelievable story about this Jew who got involved in one of these Eastern religions, and he eventually travels to India, goes up into the mountain to some ashram, and there's some guy sitting there on a rock, he's, I don't know if he's the Swami or what he is, and the guy comes in, and he bows, and he says, what can I do for you? He says, I want to study meditation and Buddhism, and he says, tell me, what was your religion when you lived in America? He says, I was a Jew. So the guru looks at him and says, so was I. And he lifts up his rock and he pulls out an article from Rolling Stone magazine about Reb Noach Weinberg and Eshet Torah. He says, first check out where you came from before you come here. Take this, go look up this yeshiva, and then come back. So this Buddhist walks into Eshet Torah. He says, what are you doing here? He goes, my guru sent me. He says, no problem, we'll take them however they come, But the point is, I got to first figure out whether it's true or not. So in the process, first you have to say, this is not true, this is not true, this is not true. It's always fascinating when you ever do a Gemara, it says, Masnisen, who's that Mishnah going like? Delok Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so then just skip that part, tell us who it is. No, first we eliminate all the other possibilities. So, I was the Long Island director of NCSY for 9 years, and it was a fascinating experience. I got to deal with kids in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, some 12th graders, mostly they were already out the door by then, but, mostly 9th, 10th, 11th graders. And we would have discussions on Judaism, and I was always surprised when a 9th, 10th grader would say to me, I'm an atheist. And I thought, that's pretty good. You're not even an agnostic, you're an atheist. That means you know that there's no God. That's what an atheist is. It means I can prove that there's no God, which is a little hard to do, but okay. You ever hear the proofs for these, well, if there's a God, why do bad things happen? I said, that doesn't prove that there's no God, just proves you don't like him. In fact, I would say that's a good reason to stay on his good side, that's not a proof that he doesn't exist, Or people come up with this great one, can God make a rock so heavy that he can't lift it? No. Then there's something he can't do. That's right. He's so all-powerful that he can't be not all-powerful. What a stupid question. You know what I'm saying? But people say this, I was like, oh, So, my brother Jason, Oliver Shalom, went to college in Kansas, in Emporia, Kansas. It was a choice between that and Vietnam. So he figured Kansas couldn't be as bad. So there were a few of these New Yorkers who were trying to get out of the draft, and a bunch of these like hillbillies, So they would get one of these philosophy students, and they would say maybe your dreams are reality, and your reality are dreams, and they're like, yeah. And they would just sit there. We would sit there and drink beer and watch them. It was a lot of fun, you know what I mean? But personally, I'm an atheist. I said, that's fascinating. Yeah, 9th grade, atheist, yeah. Tell me, did you ever study classical philosophy? Plato, Aristotle? No. Medieval philosophy, Thomas Aquinas? No. Modern philosophy, Hegel, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Kant? No. Jewish philosophy, Maimonides, Yehuda Levi? No. Did you ever study Talmud? No. Did you ever read the Bible? Not the whole thing. One guy had the monarch notes on the Old Testament. He read through the review. I said, then you'll forgive me. You're not an atheist. You're an idiot. Where did you develop your theology? On the school bus one day, looking out the window? Is there a God? Nope. In fact, I'm positive I'm an atheist. You haven't even looked into it. Now, this is an amazing thing, and we all know this. Because all of us went to high school, and all of us knew that if we didn't want to do anything, we would just say, come on, Rabbi, how do you know there's a God? And they go, what are you talking about? That was it. You can always get them off topic, It's a great trick. We've all used it. We don't feel like learning. Maybe the Torah's not true. What are you talking? It's great. But But the fact is, we take people seriously when there's nothing there to be said. Mashkiach in Kiryat Sefer calls me up. He says, I know you deal with problems in Emunah. I said, yeah. He said, I have a boy, I think he might be a koifer. I said, really? Yeah? Let me hear. He says he doesn't know if he believes in the Eibishter, and he doesn't know if he believes in Maimon Har Sinai. I said, he gets up late? Yeah. He stays out late at night? Yeah. He's not really matzliach in his learning? Yeah. He has problems, but they're not philosophical. He just doesn't enjoy what he's doing. But he knows he can't say that, because then the Mashiach will give a big message for him. So he says, maybe it's not true. Ah! Everybody goes crazy, you know? I said, tell me you have a guy who gets up in the morning, learns Stark a whole day, and then 2 o'clock in the morning you find him in the back of the basement reading Spinoza. You know what I'm saying? That's a guy who has philosophical problems. But we just know that you will be taken seriously even if you have no idea what you're talking about. This will not happen in anything else. You go to a physics convention, you say, I think Einstein was wrong. He says, really? Yeah, time is relative. I have relatives that never on time. Okay, well, thanks for coming, and, help yourself to a pastry on the way out. You know what I mean? Why should I take you seriously? You know nothing about what you're talking about. But when it comes to God, all of a sudden, everybody has an opinion. I don't think there's a God. What do you mean? Did you study the subject? Did you ever look into it? Do you know what you're talking about? Rabbi Refson, who founded Nevei Yerushalayim, was at a religion and science conference. And a world-famous astronomer got up and said, look, I don't know anything about religion, but I think it could be summed up as love thy neighbor as thyself, and do unto others as you have them do unto you, and be a nice person. Thank you very much. And he sits down. Rabbi Refson, when he gets up, he says, I don't know anything about astronomy, but I think it can be summed up as twinkle, twinkle, little star. He looks at him and says, you're a man of science. How could you say I know nothing about a subject, and this is what it means? Say I know nothing about a subject, and I'm looking forward to the theologians to explain it to me. But how could you have an opinion on something that you start off by saying I don't know anything about it? You wouldn't do that with astronomy, you wouldn't do that with physics, you wouldn't do that with anything. But we just know it's an easy way out. It's an easy way out. You know? Reb Dessler says the Greeks were such tremendous intellectuals. How could they not figure out there was a God? Right? It's an intellectual study that, as you'll see on Sunday, all the various evidence. You'll hear Dr. Schroeder, I heard him say once, you can still be an atheist today, but it takes a lot of faith. But, when you look at all the evidence, but he says the reason the Greeks didn't is because it says, when you bribe somebody, they don't see clearly. And there is no greater bribe than telling somebody that there's no God, because then I can do whatever I want. So I don't want to believe in it. Shaya Cohen tells a story that he was on a plane, and this Christian woman says, the Jews are the chosen people. He says, yes. God gave the Bible to the Jews on Mount Sinai. He says, yes. Because every Christian believes that. Right? How come Jews don't believe that? I said, because if you believe it, you can do whatever you want. If we believe it, we have to keep kosher, we have to keep Shabbos, suddenly we don't see it. Right? If I say to you, there's a God, and he created the entire world, and he gave us the Torah, and it says you have to go out every night and get drunk and hang out with girls, you'd say, I don't need any more evidence for the truth of Torah. I think it's overwhelming. You understand? But we're bribed by the fact that, we don't want to. So we go, instead of saying, I don't want to, we say, I don't think it's true. You understand? Or I know it's not true. So this evening I want to share with you one argument that I used to get from people all the time. And I used to go and try to answer it. Now I don't bother. Because I realize how ridiculous the argument is. The argument goes like this. If there's a God, let him make a miracle for me. Let him split the Red Sea in my backyard. I saw your backyard. It's not big enough. Might be some houses in Lawrence, but for the most part, God's not going to be able to split anything too impressive over there. And besides, he did all his tricks already, and he's not going to do miracles every single time. All the different arguments. But I realized at one point that it's just not true. Now, I moved to Israel in 1988. A passing phase, my parents told me. We're waiting for you to come home. And I came here at the time with my 4 children. We had another one while we were here. We've had a bunch since, but that's not part of the story. Anyway, so I'm living here with our 5 kids. And all of a sudden, in the summer, the Arab nation of Iraq invades the Arab country of Kuwait in order to destroy Israel. Now, we weren't sure how that was supposed to work out, but we were okay with that for the most part. Didn't really bother us. I'm reminded of the words of Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir. Iran and Iraq were in a deadly war for 10 years. They asked him, what do you think? He says, I wish both sides success. So what do we care? Okay. But George Bush Sr., right? Right, not W. The second one, his father. He realized that this could imperil the oil supplies around the entire world, and he realized that he wasn't doing so well in the polls. Nothing like a good war, yeah? So he got on TV and he said, if Saddam Hussein does not pull out of Kuwait, we will be forced to use military options. So Saddam said, he doesn't even know how to pronounce my name. I don't think he knows where Kuwait is. I'm going to call his bluff. And so he says, come and get us. And he took foreign nationals and tied them to military installations. And he got on TV with this little English kid and was yelling at him. The kid was crying. I mean, he really knew how to win national support, all around the world. So people are looking, this guy, he was like the perfect villain. He had the little mustache and the beret. It was like right out of Mission Impossible, I mean, like it was perfect, So George Bush is like, wow, this guy is just handing it to me on a silver platter. Now, he had been the ambassador to the UN, so he knew something about diplomacy. So he put together the largest coalition in recent history. France and Germany have had some difficulties over the past 100 years. If you're a history buff, they joined the coalition. Yeah, Russia joined the coalition. China joined the coalition. North America, South America, Israel, Syria. Everybody was on board except for Yemen. And I'm sure that was Saddam's ace in the hole because Yemen promised full support. They were going to send both camels. So, that should really tip the balance of power. So he set a deadline of January 15th. And there's going to be a war. Okay? So, well, we're not taking it terribly seriously. November time, my daughter comes home from school and she says, Ema, it was so funny today. We dressed up like foxes. And my wife turns pale. She says, did you hear that? They dressed up like foxes. I said, so what? I was a tree in the Tu B'Shvat play. Well, what's bothering you? Explain to Abba what a fox looks like. He goes, well, it was a big black mask with this long nose. So it was a gas mask. They're practicing putting on gas masks. I said, well, they don't do anything else in school. Maybe that's a marketable skill. What do I care, All they do is decorate the front page of their notebooks. I mean, they got to do something, you know what I mean? Let them do this. Fine. December, people were starting to talk. They're getting a little nervous. So the Israeli military put out a map of Iraq, divided up into sections, and they showed that we knew where all the Scud missiles were, and they were all in H2 and H3. And I thought to myself that it was a good thing that Saddam didn't get the Jerusalem Post, because he might think to move some to, I don't know, H1 or H4. But he doesn't subscribe. He didn't know. We were safe. I get the first call from my mother. That's it. Come home. I was in my 30s, a rabbi of some renown at that point. I had, 4 children, 5 children. I lose count. I had 5 children at the time. And I was like, come on, Mom, can't I stay a little longer? No, you take my grandchildren and come home right now. He said, Mom, there's nothing to worry about. He goes, they're missiles. I goes, I know, but they're all in H2 and H3. Don't mention that to any Iraqis, you see. And we should be fine. Okay. So now they decide, comes January, they're going to distribute poison gas equipment, right? So it was a typical Jerusalem evening, going out for pizza and gas masks. And I show up, and there was something wrong on my Tudat Zihut. I'm sorry, you have to go to Misrad Pnim, and you have to go and fix this. Now, I've been living in this country long enough. I know how things work here. It does not make any sense, right? I opened my first bank account when I was a kid in Long Island. I went to the bank. I said, I want to open a bank account. Oh, go to Miss Williams. First thing she does is give me a toaster. Great. Now, what would you like? Would you like seascapes? Would you like mountains? Do you like horses? You know, we have all kinds of pictures on the checks. Oh, this is great. What number would you like them to start at? Great. Would you like your initial? A big, large? Oh, that's great. Now, what kind of case? Oh, we have leather, Western, elephant hide. Oh, for sure, elephant hide. You understand? Okay, it's terrific. You know, I walk into a bank, guy smoking under the no smoking sign, and I said, "Ani rotzeh liftoach cheshbon." He says, "Zalupo." Okay, why would he lie to me? I'm trying to give him my money. So I wander around the bank from turns out it is him. So I come back. I'm like third online. He looks up. He says, "Ma ta rotzeh?" I said, "Ani rotzeh liftoach cheshbon." He goes, "Iyafshach shav ba'acharei tzarayim." So I can't do it now. Come back in the afternoon. I've been here already 6 months. I paused, and then I said, in my best regional director speaking to junior NCS wires, "Ani rotzeh liftoach cheshbon." He said, "Beseder." I don't know why. I don't understand it. I think you do business by getting people to open accounts and give you money. I had to open another one in the local branch. I came on a Friday. Said, "Who's in charge?" Said, "That lady." I go to her. She goes, "No, I don't open accounts." I go to somebody else. She goes, "No, it is her." She said, "I can't do it on Friday." And I stood in the middle of the bank with my check saying, "Michu Rosetta, Kesem Shalim, Michu Rosetta, Kesem." Guy says, "Come over here, please. Come over here." You know, I have to beg them to take my money. After that, it goes very naturally. They just take it automatically. They don't have any problems. But so she says, "The problem with your Tudat Zehut, you have to go." So I said, "No problem. We'll all die. We'll all die from gas poisoning. Don't give us any gas masks." My son was about 5. He goes, "We're going to die?" I said, "No, this is Israel. This is what you have to do." Okay? I don't know why, but that's how it goes. You know, by Sfardim, a bris is a very important thing. You know, in fact, a Sephardic friend of mine said that his father said to him, "Lo chashuv ben o bat, ha'ikar she'yeh brit." So there was this Sephardic. It doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. The main thing is that there's a bris. Anyway, so he had 3 girls. You understand? Anyway, he's pacing around outside, which, by the way, is the only thing that men are genetically capable of doing. You know, they pace around outside, and every now and then they go, "Any news? Any news?" There was this wife, she had like this 20-hour labor, and the husband's pacing and pacing, and finally goes over and it says, "Any news?" He goes, "Yes, she had a baby girl." He goes, "Oh, Baruch Hashem, she'll never have to go through what I just went through." You know what I'm saying? That's all we can handle. At some point in the 1970s, 80s, they came up with this great idea that the husband should go into the delivery room and convince his wife that she's not in pain. "Just breathe, honey." Divorce rate shot up to 60% for what I consider to be obvious reasons. So he's an old timer. He's pacing outside, and the nurse comes and says, you know, "Mazal tov, yesh lecha bat." You have a daughter, and he starts screaming, "Ma, yesh li shalosh banot, ani tzarich ben, ani tzarich shtei." He starts screaming. She gets all nervous. She goes in the back. She comes back and she says, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You had a son." Says, "You see, you don't get anything in this country unless you yell." I start screaming, "Fine, we'll all die. I don't care. Well, because okay, fine. You know, they stamp the thing, and we go to get 2 adult gas masks, 3 children gas masks, and 2 gas cribs. If you've never seen one of these, they're hard to describe. They're about this long, about this wide, made completely out of plastic. You unroll it, put the baby in, and roll it up. I said, can they breathe in there? We're pretty sure. Yeah. And by the way, here's an anti-nerve gas pen for everybody. For the babies, there's a little glove so you can do it while they're inside of the little crib, assuming they're still alive from the breathing. And this is just. By the way, you should prepare a sealed room. To be on the safe side. So take one room of the house, put plastic over the window, and have a roll of tape that you can tape up the door. On the bottom, have a towel soaking in water and baking soda and put it at the bottom. I said, is there anything to worry about? Nothing to worry about. All the missiles are in H2 and H3. Don't mention this to anybody. It's our little secret, and we'll blow them off. But in case one of them should manage to get through and have a chemical payload, this way you'll have some protection. But don't worry about it because, you live in Harnov and it's a mountain, and the gas sinks to the bottom of the mountain. I said, I live at the bottom of the mountain. I said, well, don't worry, everything will be fine. Yeah, Beseda. Okay? Now we're getting close. People getting nervous. Here's a rule of thumb. How do you know when Israelis are beginning to panic? They buy all the milk and bread. You just go, if there's a rumor of a war, snow, anything, they right away buy all the milk and bread. There's no milk and bread to be had. If it's really serious, they also get the tomatoes. But it's like, panic buying, So people are starting to buy up the milk and bread. People are getting nervous. They asked Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, what's going to be? And he says, I'm not a prophet, but I promise you the following. January 15th is the deadline. On January 16th, Klal Yisrael will say Hallel, and this year we'll eat meat on Tisha B'Av. Wow. Spread through the streets of Yerushalayim like wildfire. We're going to say, the day after the war starts, we're going to say Hallel, and this year we're going to eat meat on Tisha B'Av. And then someone realized that January 16th was Rosh Chodesh, and we always say Hallel, and that year Tisha B'Av came out on Shabbos. But Shlomo Zalman was having a little fun at our expense. Okay. Well, people are getting nervous. We're getting nervous. I get another call from my mother. That's it, come home. I said, Mom, there's nothing to worry about. Everything's fine. He goes, aren't you nervous that they're giving out poison gas equipment? I said, shouldn't I be nervous if they weren't? She didn't know how to answer that one. That was good. All right. So comes January 15th. The war starts, and we start getting calls from America because they knew what was going on before us. The war started. So I turn on the radio, take out your protective equipment and open them up, but you don't have to put them on yet. Everything's fine. By the end of the night, they announced that all the Scud missiles had been blown up because they were all in H2 and H3. The war is over. Fine. So the next night was Thursday night. I was sleeping, about 2 o'clock in the morning. My wife wakes me up and says, I think I hear a siren. Now, did you ever see those World War II movies? It's not an opinion question. I think I hear a siren. So I live in Harnov. The guy in charge of the siren fell asleep. Okay, it's it happens. So in fact, nobody got called up. Nobody got called up for this army except the people in charge of the siren. They usually have Miluim 2 days a year, Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron. That's the only days they come and ring the siren. And suddenly now, they're stuck there 24 hours a day because the rest of the army wasn't there. I remember, people were getting nervous, so they brought in General Ben Nun, who was the head of the Air Force, to reassure everybody. He was the typical, Israeli general, lots of medals, shirt open, big hairy chest, cigarette dangling from his mouth, an Arab under his arm, Then you wonder why we don't get sympathy in the world press. I remember when I made Aliyah, they were supposed to call me up for the army after 3 years, and they didn't. It could be because I was in my 30s by then, but okay, I showed up anyway. I said, Bati Bisra Tzava. I came to enlist in the army. After they stopped laughing, they said, okay, go home now, and try not to hurt yourself on the way out. I said, no, but I want to serve my country. They said, you have the military profile of a terrorist victim. Just leave, I said, no, but I can do something special for this country. He says, yeah, what? make me a military spokesman. When they see me in a uniform, they'll feel so bad for this country that you'll get world sympathy. Oh, they were throwing rocks. I was so scared. I was like, look at that poor Jew over there. It's terrible, Said you put Emunah on, you wonder. He's standing in front of an F-16 going, if Saddam would try anything, we will blow up Baghdad. He's got 4 guys in sunglasses going, ugh. The only people they called up were the siren people. Anyway, the guy in the Harno fell asleep, So my wife wakes me up. So I said, no, it's an ambulance, go to sleep. She says, no, it might be a siren. We might be in the middle of a missile attack. Turn on the radio. Okay, now I'm a news junkie. I grew up, my father listening to WCBS News Radio 88. And just keeps doing the same 3 stories all day, the same 3 stories, but they know how to present them. There was a fire in the Bronx. We go to our correspondent, Susan. Susan, what's happening over there? I'm sitting here with the fire chief. This was a 3-alarm fire. Luckily, we were able to get things under control. Were there any injuries? No, there weren't. And they'll play that story like 16 times a day, Now, could you imagine emergency broadcasting? I once did, the 1980s. Hurricane Gloria hit the New York area. They switched to emergency broadcasting. Every news person lives for this moment, Here we are at Hurricane headquarters, and we turn to our correspondent in Washington. What's going on? The president is standing by and guarantees that he'll give us any support that New York needs, and we're sure that the national government will be there for us once the storm hits. Now we go back to the hurricane headquarters. All right, we turn to our correspondent in Long Island. What's happening there? I'm in a public school where there's an evacuation taking place. We've evacuated people. I'm sitting here with Mrs. Schwartz. Mrs. Schwartz, what do you have to say? We're very nervous. And what's the situation? We've been evacuated to the public school. And what do you have to say? Thank goodness the Red Cross gives us coffee and donuts. Okay, back to hurricane headquarters. All right, let's turn to the weather desk. Oh, this is definitely a hurricane, Bob. Nothing happened. There was no news, but they were cutting that. Could you imagine if New York was under missile attack? They would bring Edward R. Murrow back from the dead. This would be the story of forever. So I might be in a missile attack. I don't know. So I turn on the radio. But there's no emergency broadcasting. Who's on at 2 o'clock in the morning? The disc jockey, Dr. Love. Shalom. Yesh hazaka. There's a siren. Lech lach go to your sealed room. V'achshav muzika. That's playing music. God, they have a slave. I said, you see, there's nothing going on. They're playing playing music. My wife said, they said to go to the sealed room. I said, they don't announce it in between songs if there's a missile attack. So I wait for the song to finish. She goes, I hope you're all in your sealed rooms. And now more music for the sealed rooms. I go, oh my gosh, we're in a missile attack. So I wake up all the kids. I bring them into the sealed room, and they're very excited because I brought Bisley and Bumper, and I said, you can't have it. It's for the war. Understand? So I kept that in the sealed room. So we go in. We tape up the door. We put the towel underneath. Everyone goes to put on their mask. I put the little babies in the things. Mommy, I roll it up, My wife says, I can't breathe. I said, you're doing something wrong. Give me the mask, yeah? I put it on, and you can't breathe. Now, it seems that a number of masks, they forgot to remove the little plastic disc that covers the air hole. And there were a couple of Arabs who actually died because they couldn't figure that out, and they kept wearing the mask. So I put it on the mask. I can't breathe. So I left it on loose because they said it might not work anyway if you have a beard, and I know what I look like without a beard, and I'd rather die. This became a big issue. Do you cut off your beard or not? So this one guy asked his Rosh Hashiva. He told him, yes, cut off your beard. So after the first attack, he calls him up. And, the Rebbitzin answers. He says, is everybody all right? He says, yeah. He says, can I speak to the Rev? He says, he'll be with you in a minute. So he says, did he shave his beard? He says, no. He told me to. Let me talk to him. He'll be with you in a minute. And in the background, you hear, ah! Ah! What's going on? He covered it with electrical tape. Gotta hurt, yeah. So I'm sitting there with this mask dangling, and the kids all have on their masks, little babies in the thing, and they're not reporting anything. There's no news. So back then, I don't know if you still can, but back then you used to be able to get Voice of America in the middle of the night. So I turned to the station, dun, 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 dun. This is Voice of America. Welcome to Gulf War headquarters. I have to point out, I am not exaggerating one thing. If you speak to anybody who's at the war, everything I'm saying is exactly what happened. There's no exaggeration. Voice of America, welcome to Gulf War headquarters. Okay, we're turning to our correspondent in Saudi Arabia. What's the situation? Well, I'm sitting here with an English pilot, turns Watkins Wilkins Harris. Harris, what's happening? Well, we're doing our job. And what is that job? We're bombing Iraq. And how's that going? Quite well, thank you. And do you want to say anything to the folks back home? Thank goodness the Red Cross gives us coffee and donuts. Good. Back to Gulf War headquarters. Now we turn to Washington. President Bush is standing by with a statement. He's going to let us know what's going on. I said, okay, I know where I am, And now we turn to our correspondent in Jerusalem. So finally, He says, what's happening? We're wearing our protective equipment and we're in our sealed rooms. And that's it. But what's Israel radio reporting? So help me, because nothing. They're just playing this feathery music. Listen, na 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 na. I can't believe this. There's nothing, Not even no news. So I turn back onto the Israeli station. I'm listening to the feathery music, and eventually they bring out the spokesperson for the war, Nachman Shai. Nachman Shai had apparently died several years earlier. No one had the heart to tell him. He had no discernible personality whatsoever. Yeah. So Dr. Love is trying to get information out of Nachman Shai. No, Nachman. Can we take off our masks? No. Can we leave the room? No. Can you tell us anything? We're looking for the Scud missiles. Now, a Scud missile is 4 stories tall, travels 8,000 miles an hour, has an explosive, possibly chemical warhead. How hard could it be to find? Excuse me, you have any Scud missiles here? No, okay. Excuse me, do you have any Scud missiles? So I realized they're probably not exploding. It's going to crash right into my sealed room, and it's going to be ticking. And I have to defuse it. And I always forget, do you cut the red wire or the blue wire? And I said to my kids, do you know if you cut the red wire or the blue wire? But they're not listening to me because they're trying to get the Bisley through the air holes in their masks. So I don't know what's happening. So finally, 5 o'clock in the morning, all clear, you can go home. Now they're not giving you any news. They figured out they might not have been so smart to tell Saddam we knew where all of his missiles were. Okay, nothing, not a weather report. They won't give you any news now. But this is Israel, Everybody has cell phones and everybody's friends. Shalom, Dudi, here in Aniba, top secret base. You know the one right off of Road 6? Yeah. Right. So what was the news? Scud missiles bombed the greater Tel Aviv area. 100 buildings were destroyed. Nobody was killed. And that first attack, no one was even seriously injured. Now, they build here in Israel, it's with steel reinforced concrete. When that falls on you, it hurts. It's also been known to cause damage. And yet everyone just got up and walked away. Nobody. One missile hit the main natural gas line of Israel. If it would have exploded, all of Tel Aviv would have been blown off the map. But it had a leak 2 days before, and they closed it down. Afterwards, they took credit for their preparedness. But, so it was, but we couldn't go on like this. So we tell America, listen, you guys don't know nothing. We know how to bomb Iraq. It's one of the things we do best, So if you don't stop this, we're going to go in there and bomb it. He goes, no, you'll upset the coalition. We'll send you Patriot missiles. Everyone said, oh, great, Patriot missiles. No one knew what a Patriot missile was. They just liked the name. Sounds like it's red, white, and blue with a cape. Patriot! Like the evil skulls missiles, like with the black with a shark face. What the Patriot missile does is it intercepts the missile, cuts it in half so the warhead can fall directly on your building. And that's what happened the next attack. There was this one building, I think in Ramat Gan, and boom! The warhead fell on it, the entire building was destroyed, no one was killed. One of the newspapers said it can't be. It's impossible. They went from apartment to apartment. This guy said, I was in my kid's room and I ran to the sealed room. This one was in the sealed room and I ran to the kitchen. This one was in the kitchen, I ran to the kids' room. Everybody had just moved someplace else. One guy was sitting in the bathroom. For my English friends, it's toilet, but we don't say that in America. It's not proper. Anyway, so he was sitting in the bathroom. And he heard the explosion and he said, I'm going to die. And I have to say the Shema. And I don't know if I can say the Shema in the bathroom. And he looked down, and there was no bathroom. Now, how he explained his situation to his rescuers, I don't know. Think about it. But anyway, no, don't forget it. Don't think about it. Anyway, so at that point, something changed. And we were like, oh my gosh, they can't kill us. I remember hearing Nachman Shai on the radio saying, Kol Meshugayim B'Tel Aviv. Yeah, get off of the roof and go inside. People wanted to watch the missiles. Here comes the missile. Boom! Oh, that was fun. Let's go next door, right? Oh, here comes another one. Boom! Yeah. It was like, people couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. There was this picture in Savion. The entire house collapsed. The guy, only his head was sticking up above the rubble. His hands were buried under the rubble, which is very hard for an Israeli because he can't talk. You can see an Israeli talking on a phone and he's moving his hands around. No one sees you, but they need that to communicate. So they're saying, how you doing? He's going, they come in with the heavy equipment, they dig him up, he was fine. He ripped my coat, I would get him, you know what I'm saying? It was just amazing. So, I remember hearing Yitzchak Rabin on the radio and he said, we have to recognize that these are miracles. And he paused and he said, and this is me talking. He was not a religious man. So they interviewed this one woman and they said, would you say that these are miracles? And she said, no. Things like this happen in Israel all the time. Now, she's right. She is. I was born in 1959, so I missed the first two wars. But I was in elementary school when the Six-Day War took place. Egypt had the largest air force in the Middle East. The Jordanian Legion was considered the finest fighting force in the Middle East. The Golan Heights were considered unconquerable. And Israel was 9 miles wide. How hard is it to destroy a country 9 miles wide? And so the first news reports were Tel Aviv was in flames, Haifa's in flames. It was like, forget about the end of the state of Israel. And it turned out, nope. We blew up the entire Egyptian Air Force. We managed to fight the Arab Legion. We managed to capture the Golan Heights. 6-Day War. Unbelievable miracle. Unbelievable. There's a military think tank. They have all these supercomputers and they keep running simulations of all the famous wars in history. And sometimes the Greeks win, and sometimes the Persians win, and sometimes the Germans win, sometimes the French win. But no matter how many times they ran the 6-Day War, the Jews never win. It's militarily impossible. The Golan Heights, I was once on a bus next to one of the commanders of the tank corps. He said most of our tanks were so old they couldn't ride up the heights. I said, anyone whose tank works comes with me. That's how we captured the Golan Heights. It was a miracle. Everybody knew it was a miracle. Okay? We Israelis being what we are, the years go by and we say, no, it wasn't a miracle. It's because we had the surprise attack. You're right. If they attacked us, we never would have survived. But we attacked first. That was the secret. But if they attacked first, we don't stand a chance. Okay. 1973. Yom Kippur. We were totally unprepared. How unprepared were we? We didn't have enough bullets to give to the army. We were running out of bullets. If Alexander Haig, who was the head of NATO, hadn't airlifted us all these supplies, that we would have just run out of arms. Golda Meir and her cabinet were carrying cyanide pills to commit suicide rather than be captured by the Arabs because they were sure that they were going to lose this war. The Syrians came down through the Golan Heights, slaughtering every settlement, everyone they found. They came to the bridge across from Tiberia and stopped. for 48 hours. To this day, nobody knows why. I've read Arab accounts, American accounts, Israeli accounts. No one can explain why he stopped for 2 days. Some people want to say, well, he thought it might be a trap. So send a couple of tanks up ahead and find out. And he could have gotten into the area and wiped out the entire city, and then there would have been nothing to stop them. And we counterattacked. Ariel Sharon crossed the Suez Canal and surrounded the Third Army. We managed to fight our way all the way to Damascus. It was a very tough battle. We managed. So they had a 48-hour head start on us. So it was a miracle we survived. Most people don't understand how serious it was. The miracle that we survived. Okay, we Israelis being what we are, we said, our army's so good, we can give the other side a 2-day head start, and we'll still win. So God says, okay, how about this? You sit in your little room with a piece of plastic between you and death. I'll shoot missiles at you and no one will die. Explain that one. 39 Scud missiles fell. Only one person died as a result of the missile attacks. And in case you think these missiles are a joke, one fell in Saudi Arabia and killed 27 U.S. servicemen. These were very serious. Didn't make any sense. So who won the Gulf War? How did that work? Sitting in your little room with a piece of plastic. So, as everybody said, these were miracles. And everyone saw this miracle. Even Yitzchak Rabin said these are miracles. And so you know what happened. After the war was over, everybody became religious, and today Israel's a religious country. Not so much. What happened is everyone said, wow, that was unbelievable, and then got up and went back to their everyday life. Rabbi Kimchi, who was a rabbi in London for many years, his brother, I was teaching with him here in Israel, and one time he told the story when he was in the tank corps in the Yom Kippur War. Now, our tanks were so old, they didn't have night vision. And the Syrians had from the Russians night vision and armor-piercing shells. I spoke to somebody who was in the Rabbinut. You know, you have to gather up the bodies. He says if one of those missiles hit a tank, there was no body. There was just ashes. He just, scooped up the ashes and buried it. There was nothing. It was unbelievably frightening. He says, so our tank corps stopped for the night in the field. And suddenly a missile comes over, a shell comes over, and lands among our tanks. We realize the Syrians must be nearby, but we can't see them, but they can see us. So the commander goes, evasive maneuvers, and everyone starts moving. He says, forget it, we're not going to get away. Just hunker down and hope for the best. He said, for hours, shells were raining down. And I was waiting at any minute to be blown up because these things took your whole tank out. And it was shaking and shaking and shaking. I just didn't know what was going to happen. And finally, the bombardment stopped. And there was silence. And the commander gets on the radio. He says, casualties report in. Silence. And he says again, casualties report in. Silence. He says, if there are any damage reports, please report in. The radio crackles. And this person says, the door of a half-track was blown off. Is anyone injured? No. So Kimchi said, I couldn't take it anymore. And I started to lift the turret. And all across the field, everyone is lifting their turret. They missed us all. All around us in the ground, it was pockmarked. They didn't hit one tank. We were literally falling out of our tanks laughing. It was the funniest thing. Now, I was the only religious guy in the tank group. I got up in the morning, you can imagine. I put on my tefillin and how I was going to daven. And there's a tap on my shoulder. No, Kilchi, yada. I said, we're pulling out already? And I turn around. And the whole tank corps was lined up, waiting to put on my tefillin. I said, what happened? I said, nothing. Everybody went back to their regular lives. Because they saw a miracle. And then they wake up, and they go back to where they were. Show me a miracle and I'll believe in God. You know, it's an amazing thing. Noah Weinberg used to say, he says, I say this, a person would say to me, I'm an atheist. I said, did you ever experience a miracle? They said, yeah. You're recognizing there's a miracle, and still I say there's no God. So, this is an old story. It's an old story. It goes back about 2,500 years. Eliyahu Hanavi, Achav, says, Moshe Rabbeinu said there wouldn't be any rain. If you bring Avodah Zarah, I brought every Avodah Zarah to Eretz Yisrael, and there's still plenty of rain. So Eliyahu goes, ooh. He says to Hashem, I want the keys to heaven, no more rain. For 3 years, there's no rain. You don't know what this is today. Because now Israel has so many desalination plants, it's not the same thing. But it used to be, if it didn't rain for a year or two, the Kinneret would start dropping, because that's where we took all our water. There was something called the red line. If it falls below the red line, you can't take any more water without destroying the ecological nature of it. So it fell below the red line, so they drew another red line. That's how we handle things in Israel. Now Baruch Hashem is not so bad, but there's no rain in old Israel for 3 years. There's no food. Animals are dying. People are dying. It's an unbelievable thing. At the end of 3 years, he appears to Achav, and he says, you destroyer of Israel. He says, me, you're the one who brought in the Avodah Zarah. He says, yeah, but you stopped the rain. He goes, you know what? Enough of this. Let's have it out tomorrow. Mount Carmel, be there. I'll represent God by myself. You bring all your priests of Baal, and let's have it out. Fine. So all the people assemble. And they make a deal. Whoever can bring down the fire from heaven wins. So priests of Baal win the toss, and they go first. And they start chanting. And Eliyahu says, try it louder. Maybe he's sleeping. So give him time. Maybe he's in the bathroom, You think he's in the bathroom? If he has a magazine, it could be a while. You know what I'm saying? Okay, fine. Probably enough time. They start cutting themselves. He says, that's good. Do that more. Anyway, comes noontime. They give up exhausted. They could not bring down the fire from heaven. And Eliyahu stands up and he says to the Jewish people, don't straddle the fence. If you think God is God, follow God. If you think Baal is God, follow Baal. But don't be Jews for Baal. And he says, God, answer your people, and the fire comes down, and everybody throws themselves on their face, and they say, Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim. And as you can imagine, this was a really bad time to be a priest for Baal. They killed all the priests for Baal. He says, Achav, you better hurry home, because the rain's about to come. Boom, the rain comes pouring down. Happy ending. Happy ending. If only the story ended there. But the story continues. Izebel, Achav's wife, the evil Jezebel, sends the captain of a guard with a message to Eliyahu, and she says to him, this time tomorrow I will put you to death. As we say in Hebrew, bluffer. It's getting easier and easier to speak Hebrew, I don't know if you've noticed. Basically English with a bad accent. There's so many words that when they couldn't come up with a word for individuality, I said, just close it down and switch to English. I said that to an Israeli once. What's the point of keeping Hebrew? All your words are English. Just give it up. And he goes, Ani optimisti. I said, okay. Well, who am I talking to over here? You know that? But anyway, he says, bluffer. If you could kill me, come and kill me. But you can't kill me because, I did this unbelievable miracle and all the Jewish people are on my side. But that's not what Eliyahu says. He runs off into the desert and throws himself on the ground. And Hashem comes to him and says, hey, what's the deal, Eliyahu? He goes, I want to die. Your people have sinned and there's no more hope. He says, Eliyahu, come with me. He brings him to Har Sinai. Puts him in a little cave that Moshe was in. And a big fire comes by and it says Hashem's not in the fire. And a big wind comes by and he's not in the wind. And a big noise comes by, he's not in the noise. And then a cold mamadaka, a small quiet voice says, what do you want, Eliyahu? And he says the same thing. Your people have sinned and there's no more hope. So, what happened here? Izebel said to Eliyahu, great, I love it. Brought down the fire from heaven, brought down the rain, made all the jokes of the priests about it. Terrific. I can't touch a hair on your head because everyone is on your side from this tremendous miracle. I'm going to have to wait for it to wear off. You know how long? 24 hours. And this time tomorrow I'll put you to death and nobody will care. Eliyahu said he's right. It took me 3 years just to get their attention. And now it's all over. I give up. Hashem says, come with me. Let me show you something. See the fire, see the wind, see the noise? You don't find a Kodesh Baruch Hu in that. It's the Kol D'Mama Daka, that quiet, everyday voice. But Eliyahu didn't get the message. So he says, okay, Eliyahu, I got to find a different leader because I can't have a leader of the Jewish people who don't believe in them. But you're not going to die. You're going to come back to every Pesach Seder. You're going to go to every Bris Milah, and you're going to announce the coming of Mashiach. In Israel, I forgot if it's 98 or 99% of Jews in Israel have a Pesach Seder and a Bris Milah. In the New York area, over 80% of Jews have a Passover Seder and a Bris Milah. And for 2,500 years, Eliyahu Hanavi has to schlep from house to house on these people that he gave up hope on 2,500 years ago because they didn't give in to his big miracle. They weren't impressed by the big show. Because what keeps us alive is the Kol D'Mama Daka. You know what the Kol D'Mama Daka is? That's what I saw when I walked into the Beis Medrash tonight. I've seen so many Kiruv organizations, these Kiruv kollels, I don't get it. They have all these clever techniques. They sit down with the Balabas and they learn Gemara with him, and I'm like, wow, that's it, huh? Yeah, it's the Kol D'Mama Daka. It's not the big show. It's not the big presentation. That helps to get the people in the door. But you know what changes lives? The small, quiet voice. It's what you do here every morning, every afternoon, and every night. It's those words of Torah. And Amir Hashem, when you have children of your own, you're going to find out that it's not the big occasions and the big fancy shows. It's those small, everyday conversations. You sit down and you learn, your son comes home, you say, son, what you doing yeshiva today? Let's learn. Sweetheart, what you doing chumash today? Let's take a look. Let's look at what you've done. Let's learn together. That small, constant, quiet voice. That's the only reason we're still alive. Study after study shows the same thing. The more people learn Torah, the more they're connected. People can ask questions. How do I know there's a God? How do I know there's a Torah? How do I know this? How do I know that? Okay. And the rest of the seminar is going to be providing you with all that evidence. But at the end of the day, what's going to do it for you is that small, quiet voice of Torah that you sit down in front of a sefer with yourself, with a chavrusa, with a Rabbi, and they help you work your way through. I have to say, I said at the beginning how I love coming to this yeshiva because the track record of this yeshiva for inspiring people with a love of Torah, and take a look at the people who came back for second year or third year, or people who never left from 10 years ago and they just don't know where to go. It's so sad. But you watch them, you look at what Torah has done for them, has done for their lives. And they showed up here like everybody else, nice, normal people. And here we destroy your life completely, forever. Because of that small, quiet voice that gets inside of your head and says, there's something more to life. How do I know? How do I know? Okay, so we'll talk about the proofs. But at the end of the day, how do you know that you exist? Everyone knows, Descartes. I think, therefore I am. When you wake up in the morning, you don't usually go, I got to get up. Wait, maybe I don't exist. Taka, I think, therefore I am. Oh, yeah. No. You don't need that to get out of bed in the morning. And a person who learns Torah doesn't need all of the proofs and all the things. They see the reality. So I hope that I've killed the entire program for you from here on in, which is always my goal. That's why they usually put me at the end. But if nothing, let this be a yardstick for you. You know, I remember when I used to teach in Discovery, I would say at the end, I said, we didn't teach you Torah. We just hopefully provided you with enough evidence that you should go and learn Torah. Now you can go and look into it and see the brilliance and the greatness of it. I remember one time I was teaching in Discovery, and another friend of mine was a much bigger Talmud Chacham. No, he's a big Talmud Chacham. And we were talking about Hanukkah, and he wrote a parish on the Sfas Emes. And we were going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And he looks at me and says, do you believe people are impressed by the codes? The genius of Torah is so unbelievable. It's greater than everything. So, Mitzvah Hashem, Sunday you'll have an opportunity to see all of the evidence, to be able to see some of the evidence, all the evidence, to see some of the evidence, to answer some of the questions. But at the end of the day, remember, it's what you do in the base medrash that's going to help to build the Emunah the most. Thank you very much.